Are you ready to dive into computing, create a virtual machine scale set up a virtual machine, and learn about virtual desktops? If so, this is the video for you. In this fundamental Azure video, we will examine various virtual machine options such as virtual machines, VM for short, virtual machine scale sets, availability sets, and Azure Virtual Desktop while exploring the virtual machine resource dependencies. The goal of this video is to narrate the Microsoft Learn content, demystify these concepts, add additional information when needed, making concepts easier to comprehend. You can follow along on the Microsoft Learn page. A triangle with MS in the center shows the page number for the Microsoft Learn unit. This video covers units 1 through 4 of the Microsoft Learn module, Describe Azure Compute and Networking Services. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to follow along. In this video, you will describe virtual machine options including VMs, virtual machine scale sets, availability sets, and required virtual machine resources in Azure Virtual Desktop. With Azure Virtual Machines, you can create and use VMs in the cloud. VMs provide infrastructure as a service, as a virtualized server, and can be used in many ways. Like a physical computer, you can customize all the software on your virtual machine. VMs are an ideal choice when you need the following: total control over the operating system, the ability to run custom software, to use custom hosting configurations. An Azure VM gives you the flexibility and virtualization without having to buy and maintain the physical hardware that runs on the virtual machine. However, as an IaaS offering, you still need to configure, update, and maintain the software that runs on the virtual machine. You can even create or use an already created image to rapidly provision virtual machines. When you select a pre-configured virtual machine image, you can create and provision a VM in a minute. An image is a template used to create a virtual machine and may already include an operating system and other software like development tools or web hosting environments. Scale virtual machines in Azure. You can run single VMs for testing, development, or minor tasks. Or you can group virtual machines to provide high availability, scalability, and redundancy. Azure can also manage the grouping of virtual machines for you with features such as scale sets and availability sets. Virtual machine scale sets let you create and manage groups of identical, load-balanced virtual machines. If you create multiple virtual machines with the same purpose, you would need to ensure that they are all configured identically, and then set up network routing parameters to ensure efficiency. You'd also have to monitor the utilization to determine if you need to increase or decrease the number of virtual machines. Instead, with virtual machine scale sets, Azure automates most of that work. Scale sets allow you to centrally manage, configure, and update many virtual machines in minutes. Scale sets allow you to centrally manage, configure, and update many virtual machines in minutes. The number of VM instances can automatically increase or decrease in response to demand, or you can set it to scale based on defined schedule. For example, if you're a company and you know that everybody comes in at 9 o'clock, you might want to set your scale sets to start beefing up 8:30 before everybody arrives, automatically meet that demand. Virtual machine scale sets also automatically deploy a load balancer to ensure your resources are used efficiently. With virtual machine scale sets, you can build large-scale services for computing, big data, and container workloads. Virtual machine availability sets are just another tool to help you build more resilient, highly available environments. Availability sets ensure virtual machines stagger updates and have varied power and network connectivity, preventing you from losing all your VMs with a single network or power failure. Availability sets do this by grouping virtual machines in two ways: update domain and fault domain. Well, what is an update domain? The update domain groups are a set of virtual machines that have simultaneous actions applied. The group may receive updates and reboot simultaneously and is allowed 30 minutes to recover before maintenance on the next update domain starts. A fault domain. A fault domain is 3 separate groups that use different power and networking resources to protect against a physical power outage and/or network issues. Best of all, there's no additional cost for configuring an availability set. You pay for the virtual machine instances you create. Some common examples or use cases for virtual machines include: during testing and development, virtual machines provide a quick and easy way to create different operating systems and application configuration test and development. Virtual machines provide a quick and easy way to create different operating systems and application configurations. Test and development personnel can quickly delete the virtual machines when they no longer need them. Applications in the cloud. The ability to run specific applications in the cloud instead of creating a traditional infrastructure, can provide substantial economic benefits when running applications in the cloud. For example, an application might need to handle fluctuations in demand, shutting down the virtual machines when you don't need them, or quickly starting them up to meet a sudden increase in demand means you pay only for the resources you need. When extending your data center to the cloud, an organization can extend the capabilities of its on-premise network by creating a virtual network in Azure and adding virtual machines to that virtual network. Applications like SharePoint can run on Azure Virtual Machine instead of locally. This arrangement can make deploying easier and less expensive than an on-premise environment. During disaster recovery, as with running certain types of applications in the cloud or extending an on-premise network to the cloud, you can get significant cost savings by using an IaaS-based approach to disaster recovery. If a primary data center fails, you can create virtual machines running on Azure to run your critical applications and then shut them down when the primary data center becomes operational again. Education. Part of cybersecurity and IT is that technology is constantly changing. A great way to learn new skills is to fire up a virtual machine in Linux or Windows and use pre-configured software. I do it all the time. Lift and shift cloud migration. Lift and shift is a migration approach in the cloud computing that involves transferring existing applications or systems from an on-premise environment to the cloud without significantly changing the architecture. It allows organizations to quickly move their workload to the cloud while maintaining compatibility and minimizing disruption. Virtual machines are also an excellent choice when you move from a physical server to the cloud. You can create an image of the physical server and host it within the virtual machine with little or no changes. Just like a physical on-premise server, you must maintain the virtual machine. You're responsible for maintaining the installed operating system and software. When you provision a VM, you'll also have the chance to pick the resources that are associated with the virtual machine, including size, purpose number of processors, cores, and the amount of RAM, storage disks, hard disk drives, solid-state drives, etc. Networking, virtual network, public IP addresses, and port configuration. Next, we're going to do an exercise to create an Ubuntu virtual machine using the command line image. In this exercise, you create an Azure Virtual Machine, a popular web server. You can use the Azure Portal, the Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, or an Azure Resource Manager template. In this instance, you're going to use the Azure CLI. Let's click Activate the Sandbox. Sometimes you'll get this box, hit Review Permissions if it's required, and then if you get another pop-up, you might have to accept the permissions. Accept the permissions. The sandbox will try and verify permissions, create resources, and assign roles. The sandbox will verify permissions, create resources, and assign roles. Azure will configure the cloud shell for sandboxes. If you receive a sad face on the connection, Azure will configure the cloud shell for sandbox access. If you receive a sad face or the connection is reset, refresh your page or navigate the sandbox in the Azure portal. Task 1. Create a Linux virtual machine. The first item in the task is to create a virtual machine in Azure CLI. Let's take a moment to break down the command and explain each component. The line on the screen is called a backslash. In Azure CLI, the backslashes state the line continues, which allows the command to span multiple lines for easier readability. When executing the command, the system ignores the backslashes and treats the command as a single line. Therefore, you don't need to include the backslashes if you write a command as a single line. Azure VM Create. This is the command to create a virtualized machine in Azure. Resource Group sets the resource group. A resource group in Azure is a logical container that helps you manage and organize resources. When creating a virtual machine in Azure, you can specify the resource group where the VM will be created. By associating your virtual machine with a specific resource group, you can have greater control over your Azure resources, management, access, and billing. Learn 6886E2B2-6A0C-4E38 and so on is the resource name for the future home of the virtual machine. --name specifies the name of the virtual machine. In this case, the VM will be named MyVM. --public-IP-SKU standard sets the SKU service level agreement for the public IP addresses with the virtual machine. The command sets the standard for the SKU. Public IP SKU refers to the SKU, the stock keeping unit. for a public IP address. Public IP addresses in Azure expose resources such as virtual machines or load balancers to the Internet. The standard SKU indicates a specific tier or level of features and capabilities associated with the public IP address. In the case of the standard SKU, it provides additional functionalities compared to the basic SKU. --image specifies the image of the operating system for the virtual machine. In this case, the VM will use the Ubuntu 2204 image. --admin-username sets the username for the administrator account on the virtual machine. In this case, the username is Azure user. Generate SSH keys. This flag indicates the command will create a SSH for authentication instead of a password. SSH keys provide a more secure access to the virtual machine. This command will create a virtual machine named myVM in the specified resource group using the Ubuntu 22.04 image and SSH keys for authentication. Copy the command and paste it in your terminal. It will take a few moments for your virtual machine to come up. Task 2 is installing the NGINX custom script extension. NGINX is a unique software used to serve websites and handle traffic. It's like a powerful server that can simultaneously handle many people visiting a website. NGINX is known for being fast and can handle many connections without slowing down. It can also help distribute the load across different servers to ensure the website runs smoothly. It can even cache or store copies of the web pages to make them load faster. NGINX can also provide extra security features to protect websites from bad things happening. Copy or paste the command into the CLI terminal for Task 2 to install the NGINX custom script. Now let's take a moment to understand the command. It sets a custom script extension for a virtual machine. Here is a breakdown of the command. AZVM extension set is the Azure CLI command to set a virtual machine extension. Resource group learn 208 ... specifies the virtual machine's resource group. --VM-name myVM specifies the name of the virtual machine. --name custom script specifies the name of the extension. In this case, it is a custom script extension. --publisher Microsoft Azure Extensions specifies the publisher of the extension. Version 2.1 specifies the version of the extension. --settings file URS, then the file, specifies the settings for the extension. This file contains the URI, Uniform Resource Identifier, a way to identify resources on the Internet, such as a file location or a website. A URL is a subset of a URI. --protected settings, command to execute configure. The purpose of this command is to set a custom script extension on the specified virtual machine. The extension will download a script from the provided GitHub URL specified in the protected settings. For more information about the script, navigate to the GitHub site and review the custom script. This command uses a custom script extension to run a bash script on your virtual machine. To summarize the script, it runs apt-get update to download the latest package information from the Internet. This step helps ensure the following command can locate the latest version of the NGINX package. It installs NGINX and sets the homepage /var/www/html/index.html. Sets the homepage and a welcome message that includes your virtual machine's hostname. Another type of virtual machine is the Azure Virtual Desktop. Azure Virtual Desktop is a desktop and application virtualization service that runs on the cloud. It enables you to use a cloud-hosted version of Windows from any location. Azure Virtual Desktop works across devices and operating systems and works with apps that you can use to access remote desktops or most modern browsers. The following video is created by Microsoft and gives you an overview of Azure Virtual Desktop.
Welcome to Windows Virtual Desktop Essentials. If your organization is looking for a more efficient, productive, and secure approach to desktop virtualization, in the next few minutes I'm going to walk you through Microsoft's Windows Virtual Desktop solution on Microsoft Azure. It offers a fully managed desktop virtualization solution in the cloud. And the good news is it works with all your apps and devices. As you can expect, we have full featured native client support for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, as well as new HTML5 support so that you can access remote desktops and apps from almost any modern browser. So why desktop virtualization? Well, for a while it's been looked upon as a solution for enabling central management and security of your users' desktops and also with less IT management overhead. Now, this approach separates your operating systems, data, and apps from local hardware, running them instead separately on a remote server. Now, the main appeal is that you can separate the compute environment from user devices so that the risk of confidential information being left on a personal device is greatly reduced. You can also make sure that your virtual machines run in close proximity to apps and services that connect to your data center or the cloud. End users have the freedom to connect with any device over the internet, and for IT, you don't have to worry as much about the device that's connecting so long as the network connection is secure. That said, standing up a desktop virtualization environment has traditionally been expensive and also complex. Users have often lacked the productivity experience of a locally provisioned desktop, and it can take weeks and sometimes months to get a successful implementation up and running. Now, with Windows Virtual Desktop, all of this complexity goes away. We give you a remote desktop infrastructure that contains the roles that you would have had to manage at scale. Things like your gateway, broker, diagnostics, load balancing, and more as a fully managed service on Azure. All your VMs in the Windows Virtual Desktop service communicate over a secure outbound connection, and you benefit from unlimited capacity. And you can also choose any size VM in Azure and vary the density of users based on the workload. We also give you more choice in how you distribute users across those VMs. For example, you're not limited to a Windows Server OS in cases where you want to assign more than one user per virtual machine. With Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session, for example, you can gain efficiencies by having multiple users on a single VM, and unlike multi-session Windows Server implementations, it has a support for modern apps like OneNote and Office 365 apps, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. You can deploy a full desktop, remote apps, or both, and of course, you can scale up or scale down as needed while paying only for what you use. Now, for users, things get even better. Now there's no compromise between their virtual desktop productivity experience and what they would experience if they had a locally hosted desktop running on their PC. It's the same. Now in Windows 10, for example, your full collection of apps, whether they're Win32 line of business apps or UWP apps, those will run. Apps are fully integrated with the Start menu. You can pin them to your taskbar, and the only indication the app is virtual is through the glyph. You can copy, paste, or snap apps side to side. They look and feel like local apps. And you don't even need to be on a PC. You can also be on a Mac, iPad, iPhone, your Android phone, or even the browser. The experience is going to be the same. So next, please continue to watch our series for hands-on guidance on the steps to prepare, deploy, and optimize Windows Virtual Desktop for your organization. Thanks for watching.
Azure Virtual Desktop provides centralized security management for users, desktops with Azure Active Directory, Azure AD. You can enable multi-factor authentication to secure user sign-ins. You can also secure access to the data by assigning a granular role-based access control to users. With Azure Virtual Desktop, the data and apps are separated from the local hardware. The desktop and apps are running in the cloud, reducing the risk of confidential data being left on a personal device. Additionally, user sessions are isolated in both single and multi-session cloud environments. Enterprise multi-session is a feature of Windows Virtual Desktop that enables virtual machines, concurrent user sessions to run on a single virtual machine. It means multiple users can connect to the same virtual machine simultaneously and use it independently, much like a desktop computer that allows multiple user accounts. This feature is handy for businesses that need to support multiple users while keeping IT costs and infrastructure requirements low. It simplifies the management of virtual machines and streamlines workload deployment. Azure Virtual Desktop lets you use Windows 10 or Windows 11 Enterprise Multi-Session, the only Windows client-based operating system that enables multiple concurrent users on a single virtual machine. Azure Virtual Desktop provides a more consistent experience with broader application support than Windows Server-based operating systems. In this module, you learned about virtual machines and the different options associated with them, such as virtual machine scale sets and virtual machines availability sets. Thank you for watching.